Are we talking now? Can we be heard? Is this the magic button? There we go! All right. Excelente. We are live. You can hear me. The audio is working. So what's up, people? Tonight I'm going to be doing a reading on the hypothetical gospel of the second coming. Now this I written by Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy, hypothetically imagining to kind of explain sort of the confusion that has happened with Christianity of the Gospels and how it relates and why the church is so afraid of Gnosticism and the mystical path, essentially the path of personal experience, personal connection, personal relationship with the divine that is at the core of any path, any true path of enlightenment, is that personal experience. That is great. I really like it because it's a reimagined gospel. We found many Gnostic gospels, extra biblical gospels, in the last 50 to 70 plus years. The Nag Hammadi Library, which has many of the Gnostic Gospels, like the Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Mary Magdalene, Gospel of Philip, the Sophia of Jesus Christ, and on and on. We have the Dead Sea Scrolls in the last, like I said, 50 to 70 plus years. Major, huge discoveries that literally change everything, and it's a surprise that some people don't even know about these still to this day. These secrets and torturing and killing anybody that had them, anybody that practiced or venerated these, buried these gospels, and we found them in the 1940s, amazingly. And what is found in these gospels give us insight into the Gnostic tradition, into and different Hermetic and Gnostic traditions. We get insight into these early spiritual people of the first century in the Mediterranean, in Asia Minor, like this, in Alexandria. So this gospel, though, is hypothetical and takes some of the actual historic artifacts, Gnostic gospels that we have, and it kind of reimagines if there was another secret gospel, what would it have maybe said? And so I'm not going to read too much. I'm just going to read like one short chapter to give you guys kind of like a taste of this great book. I really like this book. It's very well done, and it really makes you think, and it has some great research in how this whole thing happened and how Christianity formed and how it changed. And the climax of my story, announced Jesus theatrically, just when everything looks as though it's heading for death as a common criminal. Then the Lord continued, "This represents the shocking fulfillment of the cycle of becoming a better person, and then you suddenly glimpse the reality that you were not a person at all. You experience your ascension. You see that in order for you to be one with the Christ, the idea of yourself as a separate individual has to die. And that is represented in the Jesus myth by you dying to my separate self. I do something symbolically significant, the meaning of which only becomes..." "That's intriguing," said Mary. And the Lord explained, "From the cross, I tell my beloved disciple and was John, but originally it was Mary. So from the cross, I unite Mary Magdalene with Mother Mary. This symbolizes the uniting of the two aspects of Sophia. You return, and Jesus continued, "It's at this moment that I announce everything is accomplished. I've done it. I've united the individual soul with the universal soul." "Well done," congratulated Mary. And Jesus went on. It's realization that their individual story is an integral part of the universal story. When the which everything and everyone is an integral part. "So that means no one will," exclaimed Peter. "I'll prove that can't be right by choosing not to believe it." "That's very clever, Peter, saying everything. The author is saying these words right, but my Father in me." "Is it the same for the reader in the life story?" asked Mary, suddenly self-conscious about the fact that everything she was saying was being read by a complete stranger. "The reader probably believes that they say and do certain things as an individual, while the rest of life is just happening around them. And of course, are all arising as the one flow of the story from the imagination of the author." "Are you saying the reader isn't reading this book of their own free will?" asked Mary. "I'm saying that the reader steps out of the drama by recognizing their essential identity as awareness, witnessing the story. They'll see that everything is happening as one flow of experience." And the Lord continued, "You see, I was able to suffer willingly on the cross because I saw through the appearance of personal will. I surrendered to my fate because it was the will of God." "Not my will, but thy will," said Mary. "Yes, Mary, but surrendering to the will of God isn't something you've got to do," continued the Lord. "It's recognizing the way things already are. It's seeing that there has never been a separate you to do anything, the author of all." "Precisely my point," agreed Jesus, carefully following the will of the author word for word. Now I can clearly see that your crucifixion and resurrection represent the process of the spiritual initiation that leads to Gnosis. You willingly followed the will of God and died to separateness on the cross. As you died, you united the individual soul with the universal soul, and so you resurrected as the universal I, represented by the Christ. If the spiritual initiation is like crucifixion, it sounds pretty painful, and I'd rather give it a miss if it's all the same to you," said Peter plaintively. "It can be a bit traumatic, Peter," agreed the Lord, from bitter experience. "At some point in the or not. I know I did. But eventually, initiates get through anger to acceptance. They suffer willingly because they recognize that, as the author, they are creating things just the way they are. Of course, everyone makes a final exit from the story eventually, but until then, as Paul said, you have to die daily to really feel alive." "I'm going to make that a regular spiritual practice," announced Mary determinedly. "Wake up early in the morning. Number one on my to-do list is die." And Peter said, "It'll last a week, then she'll be sleeping in as usual." All right, let's read another chapter. So that was a short one. "You probably think we've reached the end of the Jesus myth," said mystical marriage of Christ and Sophia. "This sounds like a really good bit," infused Mary. "When it and the goddess become one, the initiate sees that there is no separation between the story and the primal imagination within which the story is arising, any more than there is between a dream and a dreamer. It represents the I, that is, witnessing the flow of experiences we call life. Sophia represents all of the appearances arising within awareness. When Christ and Sophia become one, this represents the experience of Gnosis. And the Lord explained, Christ is the lover of Sophia, one with everyone and everything. You are now a philosopher, which means lover of Sophia. You love the story. You're a lover of life. The symbol of a marriage is just perfect because that's it as well. Gnosis isn't just oneness, because oneness is the dazzling darkness of unconscious awareness. Gnosis is the recognition of our essential oneness through the story of separateness. I want to embrace Gnosis right now, exclaimed Mary, unable to contain herself. That's good, because right now is the only time you can experience Gnosis. The mystical marriage can only happen in the present moment. And the Lord elucidated. This moment is the marriage of God and Goddess. The Goddess is the story, the past, history. God is the imagination, the future, possibilities. This moment is the product of the past. It contains all of history within it. This moment is latent future. Then he added, in this present moment, we can be so stuck in the story that we don't see the infinite potential is replete with previously unimagined possibilities, including the possibility of stepping out of the story and experiencing the moment. And that is loving the present moment. The good news proclaimed in this gospel of the second coming is that through self-knowledge, we can love being right now. That really is good news, enthused Mary. Then Jesus thought of another little thing that might be worth mentioning. So he asked Mary, do you remember when I turned water into wine at that wedding and my mom said they had saved the best wine for last? Of course I remember, said Mary reluctantly. Peter got very drunk and embarrassed himself on the dance floor. I'll never be able to forget that, unfortunately. And Jesus explained, the wine miracle happened at a wedding because it symbolizes the mystical marriage. When you experience the big love of Gnosis, the water of everyday life is transition, and big love really is the best. I'm tingling all over, squealed Mary. And then Peter asked, have you done? Is realizing you are the author the end of the story? Can we please talk about something else now? There is a new role as one of the good guys who wants to relieve suffering. And you do this because, as it says in the Gospel of Philip, he who is free because of Gnosis is a slave because of love. That when you step out of the story, you are free from suffering and separateness. But when you see that you are one with all, you find yourself in love with all. So you feel compelled to rescue others who are suffering and separate. Kindly, when you know you are the author, you want to creatively engage with the story because you love the story and you want to share your love of the story with the other characters so that they can also come to love the story in all. You engage with the story of separateness as an embodiment of love. Yes, Mary, agreed the Lord, who was delighted with her progress. You become an ambassador for the united state of oneness to the chaotic kingdom of selfishness and suffering. But are we still all going to resurrect at the end of time when the dead rise from the grave? Jesus explained, resurrection is not something that's going to happen in the future to a chosen few, nor is it something that happened in the past to me. It is something that can be experienced here and now by every one of us. People who say they die first and then arise are mistaken. If they do not first receive the resurrection while they are alive, once they have died, they receive nothing. receive the resurrection while they are alive. Once they have died, they receive nothing. You see, when we are lost in the story of separateness, we are dead and living in hell, which is why most of us walk around as lifeless zombies. We are like shades living in the underworld of Plato's cave, and we need to see the light. The end of time is not some prophesized apocalypse in the future. The end of time is now. The end story is leading to this moment. Now is the only place where time stops. It's always now. Mary sighed deeply. Well, I'm relieved to hear there isn't literally going to be someone blowing a trumpet and the dead coming out of their graves. That's disgusting. But the idea that we can philosophically awaken from our zombie-like trance and realize how miraculous it is to be alive, now that's exciting. Dead, I know which I'd rather do. Well, there you have it, my friends. The gospel of the ancient Yeshua, Isa, Saint Isa, the Christ, the Logos. Great book. I highly recommend it. Again, it's a hypothetical gospel, taking authentic Gnostic gospels and Gnostic wisdom and the traditional gospels and giving us a deeper insight, hypothetically, what a secret gospel, another secret gospel might say, Gnostic wisdom of the ancients. So I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream today, this reading. Thank you for tuning in. In a few minutes, I'm going to do another little live stream, and I'm going to be reading from Krishna, story about Krishna. Just a different live stream, different flow. So I'll see you guys soon, and may the grail be always with you. Peace.